Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Passionate Workforce Podcast, the show that explores how leaders can build organizations where people love what they do and are inspired to give their best every day. I am your host, Nick Capman, President and CEO of the FDA Group and author of the #1 bestseller, The Passionate Workforce. In this podcast, we dive into real-world conversations with leaders, thinkers, and change makers who are shaping the future of work. So let's get started. So today, we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic. We're going to be talking about what keeps good companies from becoming great, even when the owners and teams are capable and hardworking. So my guest today is Peter Martino. Hey, Peter, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Okay, I'm doing great. Thank you for joining me today. So before we jump into the podcast, would you kindly introduce yourself?
Of course. My name's Peter Martino. I'm an EOS implementer. And what that means is I work with the leadership teams of entrepreneurial companies. And my passion is helping them build a better business and live a better life. And I've worked with about 60 companies, the leadership teams of their organizations. And I've conducted over 600 full-day sessions with those leadership teams over the past 7 years.
Okay. And in all transparency, Peter is our implementer at the FDA Group, and we love him. We work with him every quarter, and a big component to our success. So thank you for everything you do, and that's why I'm really excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you.
So first question, how much does the gap between a clear vision and everyday execution hold back a good company from becoming great?
Yeah, I think the gap in a lot of organizations is quite big. It's almost a silent killer in a way. Most leaders think that they have a clear vision and they think they have an idea of how to execute to achieve it. But often what I find is that the vision comes from maybe a single person and it's largely in their head. It's not often captured well in writing and agreed to by the entire leadership team. And one of the things that we find to be very important is to bring leaders together in an organization and give them a voice, allow them to speak into the vision of the company that they work for. And inherently, when their voice is heard, they're far more likely to want to be a part of executing to achieve that vision. And so that's a key component of what we do. Once the vision is clear, it's then important to have real clear mechanisms and expectations of how to execute to achieve that vision. So that may involve effective meeting pulse, effective measurement of metrics or KPIs, clear expectations of everyone in the company of how they execute in their roles.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that the issue is more the documentation of the vision, or is it more bringing in leaders that can share in the vision?
So we recommend and we work with companies to pull the voice out from each leader and document it. We create a simple 2-page document. We call it the VTO. It's a Vision Traction Organizer. And that 2-page document represents the greater good of the company. And so what I challenge leaders is to passionately discuss and debate really each and every word on that document. What are your core values? What's your core focus? What's your long range vision for the organization? What's your 3-year picture? What's the plan for the year, the 1-year plan, etc. And when they can agree to because of a passionate discussion and debate, they can agree to every word on that document, then that becomes the guiding principle. So I think it's both, Nick. It's
clearly
the involvement of the team and their voice and the documentation of it so that they now have a guiding document.
Okay, excellent. Let's talk about maybe working in the organization and on the organization. So do leaders sometimes confuse being busy with being strategic? And if so, how does that limit growth?
Yeah, I mean, busyness is kind of, some people wear it like a badge of honor, brute force, white knuckle work. And maybe there's times in our society or in history where that was important. That was the way to work. But I think in our modern culture, in our society, and the way companies are constructed, That brute force is often a symptom of or symptoms of maybe some root issues. That could be a lack of delegation, a lack of willingness to have open, honest, real conversations, maybe the inability to solve people issues. We talk a lot about having the right people in the right seats. That's a phrase that Jim Collins made famous. And it's important for every company to know clearly what your vision, where you're going, and how you're going to achieve it, but then to surround yourself with and retain a lot of right people and put them in a lot of the right seats. And I find that busyness or a lack of ability to rise above the company and work on it is
Mm,
because there's either a lack of delegation to key people or an unwillingness to deal with wrong people in the wrong seats.
mm, mm. Yeah. Um, the word busy has become a little bit of a thorn in my side because I don't care about busyness. I care about productivity.
Yeah.
So that's something I kind of annoyingly notice in some conversations. Let's talk about issues with accountability, ownership, and communication. How do those show up even in hardworking teams? And what are some of the issues in those areas?
Yeah, I think hard work doesn't equal healthy work. Um, it starts with crystal clear expectations. So when a company knows what every seat in the company is, and they're clear on what the expectations of those seats are. We call it an accountability chart. You might
Hmm.
call it job descriptions, but when a company knows that, when a leadership team can agree and align around that, and that can change over time, that's the base point of expectations. Because now we know, all right, what are all the important things that need to get done in this company, and who's ultimately accountable for them? Who's responsible for them? And when two people own something, no one really owns it. So by creating that clear accountability chart, it should reduce some of the lack of clarity around who's ultimately responsible for getting stuff done. And so that becomes the framework for or the baseline for accountability and ownership of roles and responsibility in the company.
Mm,
So, we talk a lot about focus and prioritization. And when everything's important, really nothing's important. So, trying to do everything is a fast way to ensure that you won't get the right stuff done.
kind of
Uh,
like trying to please everyone, you end up pissing off both sides.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's just a symptom of a lack of clear focus. I like to say, no is a complete sentence. And we often as humans want to say yes. We want to people please. We want to do more. We feel like we can fit 10 pounds of junk into a 5-pound bag, right?
Mm,
And so having the right expectations of your team and
mm,
creating the expectation that some of their most important decisions will be to say no to things.
mm.
And that will create focus in the organization.
I was just thinking about the concept, maybe it kind of piggybacks on this answer that you gave, but more so maybe on the other one, which is the concept of busyness, is um, I think some of the most useful moments are those quiet 30, 60 minutes that employees have, not necessarily in front of their computer,
Mhm.
right? When they finish their day and they're driving home, or obviously we've heard the shower, right? That's where you get your ideas. But really the point is it's not in the shower, it's not in the car, it's the not doing anything, but your mind is still engaged in, I call it the work hangover.
Yeah.
And it's still kind of trying to organize everything that's happened. And I think a lot of times those are not considered work. That's not considered work. But really, that's some of the most valuable work is the work that's done in somebody's head quietly when they don't actually know they're doing work because that's where the a lot of the innovation and creativity comes just from an initial idea, right? You got to work through it, right? But where do those inspirational moments come from? And I think it comes from that point. And if you're just so busy, 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 busy to the point that you're squeezing rock, water out of a rock, you're not giving yourself the opportunity to have those moments. And so just kind of my gut reaction.
Yeah, and you and I and your team have talked about this concept a lot, and it's a clarity break.
Mm,
Yes, it's one thing to do it, let's say reactively, or just when the space permits, when you're
mm,
driving or when you're on a jog or doing something. It's a higher level, I think, of leadership to actually schedule these dates with yourself where you can get
mm,
away from everything. Maybe even
mm.
shut down your computer and just grab a notepad
Yeah,
and let the thoughts flow.
yeah.
Have a conversation with yourself. I think that's where creative ideas come from. It also can build your confidence. I know personally
Mm,
that's been a big byproduct of a clarity break, is
mm,
if I'm feeling a little bit unanchored to how well I'm doing or not doing as a business leader, having that clarity break can help boost my confidence and give me some almost like self-support
mm.
in moving forward. So I think all great leaders, it's been well documented. Steve Jobs, um, as one example, did clarity breaks of some sort. I know there's other great leaders that have taken on this habit. So I
Mm.
think it's highly recommended.
Awesome. How does the lack of focus, trying to do too many things at once, keep companies stuck in good versus great?
Yeah, again, lack of focus means we're trying to do too much. And when a team or even an individual tries to do too much, they're not going to do the core thing well. And Jim Collins did a lot of work on this idea of strengthening the core of your company before you can stimulate progress. You might have a million great ideas, but if the core of your company is not strong, that's the core people, the core product and services, the core financials of your company, all of that. If that is not strong, I don't care about your 100 great ideas. You got to be strong. And so, first, protect the core, and then you can stimulate progress. So, yeah, that busyness, that lack of focus is just trying to do too much. And that ensures that you won't really do anything well. Do less better. James Clear, I love that. I love that concept of less but better.
Mhm.
That's important when you're a leader in a company, especially, or just
James,
a person playing a role in a company as
was
well.
James Clear Atomic Habits?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I really like the play on words, Atomic Habits,
Yeah.
because they're opposites, right?
Yeah.
Atomic meaning really small and atomic meaning really big, right? So that was a great read, and I think a lot of people listening to this have already read that book. So good for them. Um, were you going to say something?
No, go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. In what ways do companies underestimate the impo let's see. I'm sorry. What mindset shifts are required for leaders and teams to go from maintaining good to pushing for great?
Yeah, I think greatness, it requires it being willing to do the little things and the somewhat boring things. And I think we often want to prioritize the glamorous, the flashy, the glitzy, but greatness comes from simple, repeatable effort and action in the right direction over the
Mm,
course of time.
mm,
And so that's a mindset shift, especially in this day and age where everyone has the opportunity to live stream or to try to be an influencer of some way. But, lo and behold, in every city and town across our country, there are great companies. There are small and mighty companies, I like to call them, in almost every town.
mm,
And they're just doing the things that they know how to do, and they're doing them well. They're protecting the core of their company and applying consistent action to make their company better and better and better. Versus, it's the old tortoise and the hare fable, right? The tortoise just puts one foot in front of the other, follows a consistent pattern and pace, and the hare's all over the place, chasing
mm,
chasing things, talking to anyone and everyone about everything. And lo and behold, the tortoise wins the race in that old fable. So
Hmm.
similar idea. That's the mindset I think it takes to take a good company to a great company.
Let's say somebody's listening to this podcast and they're trying to, they're not sure what they are. They're trying to figure out, am I a good company? Am I a great company? How could you help them understand where they are in their journey and help them define for themselves where they are within that question?
Yeah, when I get any type of that question, we actually have a, believe it or not, a survey, an organizational checkup. Nick, you and your team do it every year. And it's a simple 20 question assessment that anyone can do, whether they're using our system EOS or not. And it really puts right there in print, black and white print right in front of you, whether you're strong in these areas or not. We believe that your company is fundamentally built on six key components, and your job as leaders is to strengthen those six key components of your business. And that organizational checkup would bring that to light, whether or not you're strong in those key areas.
Hmm.
And the questions on there, Nick, are things like, do I have a clear vision that's shared by everyone in my company? Do I have a clear structure with the right seats? And am I surrounded by the right people, those that share our core values and fit our culture? Am I measuring things well? Do I have metrics or scorecards in place so that I have my finger on the pulse of the business? Am I tracking customer and employee feedback and satisfaction? Things like that are the questions that come to light there.
Hmm.
And I think in that vein, someone can confidently say, they're well on their way to being a great company, or we're at a lower starting point and we got a lot of opportunity to build and grow. But the exciting part is, with the right attitude and mindset around improvement, I actually like working with companies that have a lower starting point, because the learning curve and the improvement curve is so steep early on.
Hmm.
They can make huge impacts on their organization in a short period of time if they have the foundation of a good, healthy mindset around improvement. They're not attached to the status quo. They're willing to let go of the past a little bit. They're okay that the decisions they've made previously may not be the best decisions, and they want to make better decisions moving forward. If they have that
Hmm.
mindset, well, then they can rapidly make improvements to their company just by putting good, simple, sound, practical tools and disciplines in play.
Hmm. Let's say somebody's listening to this and they said, you know what, I'm listening and I think we're a good company and I'd like to be great. What does great look like? So when you've worked with different leadership teams and they've gone from good to great, what does that look like when people have, I say, crossed that threshold?
Yeah, and not to brag on your company too much, Nick, but you guys are, and it's remarkable to witness. But I think what you have fundamentally, probably different ways to break this down, but you have three things. You have vision, you have traction, and you have a healthy leadership team. And I'll go through those one by one. You and your team have a clear, compelling, unified vision of what this company should look like now and into the future. And you're all on the same page about it.
Mm,
You have a vision statement, you have a clear 3-year picture, you have a clear 1-year plan every single year. You know exactly what you need to do this year to stay on track for your 3-year picture and your long range vision statement. You have traction. And in our world, traction means discipline, accountability, and execution. You have an effective meeting pulse where your leadership team can effectively set up and knock down issues every single week. Also, quarterly meetings and annual meetings. You're disciplined, you're accountable, your team owns their stuff. They take a full responsibility for what they're expected. And you have health. You have a healthy dynamic as a leadership team. And I'm referencing your company here, but vast majority of the companies I've worked with have worked to achieve these things and are continuing to do so. And a healthy leadership team, leaning on Patrick Lencioni's work, a healthy leadership team is willing to be open, honest, real, raw, even vulnerable. They let their guard down, and they're always thinking of the greater good of the company. They're not thinking
mm,
about themselves and their own self-protection or their ego or what affects them.
mm.
but they're thinking, what does this company need from us as leaders and as a team? And from that, if you ever have the chance, and I know you have, but your listeners to read Patrick Lencioni's Five Dysfunctions of a Team, he builds this model of a trust pyramid. When you have that vulnerability-based trust, that leads to productive conflict and passionate discussion. That leads to commitment, and that leads to accountability as a leadership team, and ultimately to results.
Mm.
So that's what a great company looks like. Starts at the leadership team. As I've told you many times, if there's cracks here at the leadership team, at the core of the company, there's fissures throughout the organization.
Mm.
So vision, traction, and a healthy leadership team are the things I think the first and top most important three that I can think of.
Yeah. I'll piggyback off of that. The what I think leaders and leadership teams can experience when they go from good to great is peace um, and confidence.
Hmm.
So I think there is a really strong sense of peace and confidence. So I would say those are probably the two words that come into my head. You mentioned Peter Lencioni's Five Dysfunctions of a Team. If people were interested in learning a little bit more about the leadership that you speak about, what resources or what books would you point them to?
Yeah, some of that is one of my favorites, Five Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. But in terms of the simple tools, disciplines, and practices of a company that's going from, like I referenced earlier, kind of weak in the six components of their business to strong. The book Traction by Gino Wickman is kind of the core to our business model. It's a great read. It's highly reviewed and recommended by a lot of entrepreneurs and their leadership teams. And then, of course, Good to Great by Jim Collins is a classic. A lot of the stories in Good to Great are a little bit older, but they're still great content.
Yeah,
Now that it's
that's true.
25.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, the points he makes are good. The examples could be updated.
For sure. Yeah, and I think the response to that is something around the fact that the companies that were good and became great, they abandoned some of those principles that got them to be great,
Hmm.
and that's why they no longer are in many
Yeah.
cases. And examples there, and also his follow-up book, How the Mighty Fall, is a great
Oh.
read, and that explains a lot of how great companies can lose their way.
And was that in response to Good to Great?
It was certainly, I don't know if it was written directly in response to Good to Great, but it was written after Good to Great, and I think draws some correlation to some of those businesses, maybe directly
Oh.
or indirectly, and the cycle that they went through, and eventually that led to their demise.
So I'm curious. What have you seen in terms of companies that were great but then lost their way? Is there one primary aspect that you see kind of falls off a cliff, or is it a few different things? Have you seen that before, and what have you seen?
Yeah, yeah. What comes to mind is the fearless leader. Uh, Companies that have a clear leader. We call it an integrator, the person that's harmoniously integrating the leadership team and setting the pace and beating the drum and removing obstacles. And
Hmm.
that's so critical. And if they lose that leader in any way,
Yeah.
or that leader becomes distracted, that's
Uh,
one thing that can often lead to the downfall or the downtrend
Sounds
of
a
a
lot
company.
like Apple.
Yeah, yeah, and many other examples. Disney comes to mind as well.
Right.
They went through a
And
long
in
season.
both cases, the leader came back.
That's correct.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Huh.
Pixar
Okay.
is another one. So other industries like that, but even in small companies, that can happen. Could be a change of leadership. Could be a distracted leader. So that's one. The second thing that comes to mind, Nick, is, as we've already referenced, a lack of focus. This idea that, hey, we're good at a few things, so we probably could be good at a bunch of things. One example comes to mind that I like to reference. I work with a good-sized roofing company down in Connecticut, and great company, great leadership team. They were exceptional at roofing service, replacement roofing service. Exceptional. Generated leads, sold the business well, produced the business well. Got a little bit, there's a little bit of hubris that came into play maybe, and they thought, wow, we're great at roofing. Let's try some other services too. And they got into the habit of doing even some interior work. If a roof was damaged from, let's say, a tree falling or wind damage, and then maybe there was a leak into the house, they said, hey, we can just subcontract the interior work, the plastering, the insulation, and the paint. And in one quarterly session, about half the issues on the issues list were related to the extra work they were doing. And I said, time out, guys, let's pull out your VTO document. We pulled out their vision document. We said, what's your core focus? It's written in black and white. Restoration roofing. There's just 2 words. Restoration roofing. I said, where does it say insulation? Where does it say plaster? Where does it say paint? And they said, oh my goodness, we got out of our core focus. They came back 90 days later and said, we stopped cold turkey. We said, no more, we're not selling any more interior work. We'll just refer it to other contractors. And they said it was one of the best decisions. So lacking focus is a clear issue that will lead to the demise of a company, or at least a temporary demise.
Yeah. And I'll admit, we went down a similar path where we started to try to expand our service offering. And we found out relatively quickly that it just the ROI in terms of time, effort, just it didn't pay off. And as odd as it sounds, as soon as we removed those service offerings, the business grew.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really make sense, but I think you probably have a number of examples where that has proven true, right?
I do.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. I really appreciate your time and your insight. What would you like to leave the audience with before we close?
Yeah, I think what I'd like to lead you with, it's a little bit tangential to what we've been talking about, but something I like to share with as many leaders as I possibly can. Leadership and management it necessitates your desire to be great at it. And there are plenty of people who don't want, or have the capacity to be a great leader in an organization. And that's okay. We need people. We need more people that can just do a job well. Go do a job well, produce a product or deliver a service. If you're trying to be a leader in a company and it's not your God-given ability or your passion, your natural gifted passion, just admit that and get really good at a craft or a skill or a job. And but if you want to be a great leader, it's like any other skill. It's diminishable, and you need to invest time, energy, and resources into doing it well. So reading books, going through training, and just having those clarity breaks we talked about, working on your business or on your department. So know who you are, know yourself, and make some decisions about how to be a better leader for your company.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Peter. And for everybody listening, if today's conversation resonated with you, please share it with a colleague or a leader who's passionate about building a stronger and more inspired team. Don't forget to subscribe at thefdagroup.com/podcast for new episodes, and follow the FDA Group on LinkedIn for ongoing insights about leadership, culture, and workforce excellence. To dive deeper into these ideas, pick up a copy of my book, The Passionate Workforce, available wherever books are sold. Until next time, keep leading with purpose and keep building a passionate workforce. Thanks, everybody.